club podcast where we talk about the books by Tamora Pierce. I'm Marisa.
I am glad that you did that correctly this time because I wasn't going to stop recording. And I'm Ariana. But I feel like that's also encapsulating Ariana.
Yeah, and that's our intro. So, what book did we... I'm going to yet again say that this is, I keep trying to say not safe for work podcast, but it's not. I mean, in the way that we cuss.
Rated T for teen, for strong language and mature things. Themes is what I meant to say.
Love that. We're starting strong.
So strong.
But I will say, I don't usually say that for this podcast. However, I do like to plug. I'm just going to keep doing this every time.
Sure.
If you would like to support Tamora Pierce, she has a Patreon, which is patreon.com/Tamora Pierce. And if you go there and you give her money, you can do things like get updates on her writing and stuff like that. So, really cool. If you do that, let us know in the comments or in a review and be like, wow, I went to Tamora Pierce's Patreon because of you guys. We just need you guys to interact with us. It's for algorithms,
You don't have to mean it. Just say it.
Yeah, just say it. Just interact with us. That's all we ask. It just takes one click of a button, generally. So, what book did we read this month?
Well, this month we consumed the 7th book of Tamora Pierce's and the 3rd in the Immortals quartet. Oh my god, I was like quadrilogy.
Quadrilogy.
Yes. Emperor Mage.
Yes, Emperor Mage. What is your general review of this book?
My overall review is, this is such a good book. This is like the first really good book she wrote.
This book it's like, I had to stop myself every single time because I was trying to read it like slowly over the last week. And I had to stop myself from just reading and just reading it all in one night. This is, in my opinion, the first 5-star book that she wrote.
Absolutely.
It is just so...
start to finish.
Fantastic. The world, there's just so much to it. And it just draws you in and you care about the problems. Mm-hmm. And I just... love it.
There's no, dangling thread that she, is like, oh, we'll come back to this in the next book. It's just like, hey, we're dealing with everything fucking head on right now, right here. Are you ready to go with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. So, let's talk about what this book is about.
Generally, or are we running through the synopsis?
Let's do the synopsis. Let's just get into it.
Because it's not like we're not going to editorialize as we go. I wish to start, if I may.
Yes.
Chapter 1. We begin our tale in Carthag, renowned for its mage university, the Emperor's menagerie, and boo, slavery.
Yeah, it is very heavy-handed and very white savior-y in this book, despite the fact that Dane isn't white, but continue.
The sentiment continues. Prince Kadar, nephew and heir to Emperor Mage Ozorn, awaits the Tortall is what I was going to say. The Tortallan delegate as they arrive to discuss peace between their kingdoms. Prince Kadar is resigned to be the escort for the 15-year-old mageling with wild magic the delegate is bringing with them to heal his uncle's treasured birds who have been sick and dying. That is a very run-on-y sentence, but we're going to move forward. I'm not the one writing the book. Tammy is. Let's let her decide. The prince is alarmed to realize animals have gathered at the docks to welcome the wild mage, Viraladine Sarasri. And then we actually cut to the person this book is about. It's amazing. Dane is on the ship with Numair Salmalin, the king's champion Alana. Salmalin! Whatever.
There's an accent mark!
Yeah, but isn't it tilted?
No.
We go through this every time.
Every time.
And also, both Duke Gareth, the older and the younger, and obviously Kitten the Dragon is with them. I omitted everyone else because there's a lot of people in this entourage, but most of them don't matter.
Don't care about most of them.
Yeah.
Alana's there, and Dukes Gary and Gary are there.
Mostly Duke Gary, because the other Duke Gary lets his father take the reins. Yeah. Let's see. The diplomatic party prepares for an entirely different culture than what they are used to. A place where slavery is a deeply ingrained practice, and all both fear and worship the powerful Emperor Mage. They must be on their guard. Numaire's death warrant has been forgiven, but he knows he must be ready for Ozor to bait him into doing something which would damage any chance for a treaty. Alana seems to be the best behaved? That can't be right. Who is this? This isn't our Alana. Guys, spoiler alert, she is so well behaved in this book. It is amazing. It is not the Alana we're used to. Dane and Alana both must wear clothes which are more feminine than their usual work garb, but not as restrictive as apparently what's there. I guess that there are veiled women, but like we don't.
Yeah, we don't ever actually see any Carthaki women out in the wild.
It's crazy. Like I got towards the end of the book and I went, wait a minute. But apparently they are out there. Dane is changing into her boarding clothes she's changing into her boarding clothing, and we get our patented vague and abrasive visit from the one and only First Badger. The Badger is furious Dane has left Tortall, and despite there being little she can do to change it, really wants her to go back now. He knows that the great gods the humans worship are angry with Ozorn and ready to burst. The Badger, influenced by unseen entities, gives Dane a little gift by blowing his silver magic on her. Here, in their boarding clothes, we get an absolutely cute baby by Dane moment. Numair says she is lovely in those clothes, and she argues she is no Lady Alana or Queen Theet. But Numair tells her Alana is not pretty, and she is much lovelier. But Dane doesn't get it, because she thinks the power of those women is what makes them beautiful. It's so lovely. Like, I put a little note there immediately, be like, oh, you cute little baby.
Cuties.
Because then Alana comes in immediately after, and is like, I heard that, but you are pretty. And Dane's like, oh no.
No, you're pretty.
Senpai noticed me.
Yeah, it's pretty. No, you're pretty.
No, you're pretty. No, you're pretty.
Everyone is bi.
I love it. This book especially.
Yeah.
They go to shore to meet Prince Kadar and the dignitaries he has brought to greet them, but since it is just two-leggers, Dane pays them no mind. There are crocodiles in the river, and she is warned they are beasts. She doubts this, but the crocs hear her and are like, bitch, yes we are, and we love that they think it. I love crocodiles.
Don't scold him. If he jumped in the water, we'd eat him.
Yeah, he's right.
He's right.
We have no shame. This is how we survive, okay? Just then, a little boy with an exotic pet loses the pet over the edge, and it goes into the water where the crocodiles are ready for a snack. Dane, being Dane, tells them not to eat him and jumps in after the animal. It is drowning because of the stupid collar the boy had on it, so she frees and rescues the animal. She is told he is a marmoset, and she names him Zek after the Zakoi River from which she saved him. I don't think Kadar says much, but at this moment he's kind of like, who's this broad? He's like, what happened here?
She's not what I expected.
I mean, she's dirty like I expected. She just immediately jumped into that mucky river, but...
I mean, like, would I be any different if I saw an animal, like, drowning?
Absolutely not.
Would I, like, be like, no, I'm wearing beautiful clothes, I can't jump in to save it? No, I'd fucking jump in to save it.
Yeah. No. We and Dane are introduced to some mages, including Numair's favorite teacher, the only one I'm okay with calling him Aram, because there are people who call him Aram in this.
Yeah,
and
for different reasons.
It frequently feels like calling him
his dead name.
Yeah, it's his dead
It's
name.
like they're dead naming him. Like that's just like it's just what it is.
And there are several times where Lindhall actually. I'm sorry. Lindhall Reed is the name of this man. I know I didn't say it. I just said that I was fine with him calling him Aram. He tries to call him Numair. He really does. Yeah. But it is so ingrained because he knew him since he was a little boy. And I think Numair is cool with it because he's like...
It's not said in the way of the...
Yeah.
How, like Ozorn says it in like a
Aram,
degrading way.
Aram Draper.
And Varese says it in like a...
You say it Varese.
Yes.
Okay. I called her Varys.
Oh, yeah. Varese. That's how I've always pronounced it. But, she does it in a weirdly, like... It's like manipulative?
It is. It's very much playing at the...
I know
boy
him so
aspect
well.
of him.
I know, yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it.
Yeah. No, I hate it. I've discovered, I didn't, coming off of the Young Numair book, I was fond of her. And then it's just like, oh no, this is really what she's like. Oh, I forgot this entirely.
I cannot wait to read how she becomes this. I'm so excited.
But anyway, we're off track already. Oh, and I put in my notes about Lindhall Reed. This man is the Sir Miles of this book, and you cannot change my mind.
It's true.
He is. Dane is shown to her room where she changes into fresh clothes after soiling her boarding clothes with the river muck. There is a tiger skin rug in her room, and as Dane goes to move it, a silver fire briefly revives the tiger. She panics, but, again, being Dane, she chooses to put that from her mind.
She's so good at compartmentalizing.
She really is. I admire it. She just forgets the compartments are theirs, unfortunate part.
She does. And you know what? I get it. Same, With Zek in tow, because he will not let go of Dane unless it is to latch onto Kit, Dane and Kitten rejoin the party to greet the Emperor Mage. Roll credits. Ozorn is elegantly adorned by jewelry, makeup, fine fabrics, and sweet-smelling perfumes. He has a chat with Dane about her magic and how she came to care for Kit, though he assumes she stole the baby dragon. Honestly, in rereading this, I thought it was weird how distant Ozorn was in the scene, because I forgot about the simulacrum.
I did.
Yeah, valid. At the party, suddenly a beautiful ghost from Numair's past, Varese, what's her fucking last name? Kingsford or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh
Kingsford,
my God.
yes, Kingsford.
Yes. Varese Kingsford appears to greet the Tortallans, but especially Numair. She makes it,
Oh my God.
Lindhall notes that Varese and Numair were lovers before he left Carthag. I'm not a fan of grown-up Varese,
As I said.
Yeah. When they are alone, Kit begins to chirp at something. Dane flippantly tells the hidden person that, while they do a good job of it, they will not be able to conceal themselves from her dragon. The mage lets the spell fall and reveals himself to be Ozorn. Here, he is charming and affable. He says that he hates these events and prefers to let a simulacrum field his visitors while he sneaks around invisibly. Dane, tired of the party herself, asks if she can go heal the birds and stop with this diplomatic shit. I mean, she's like, okay, I'd like to go see the birds. And he's like, oh, I mean, I didn't want to ask you to do that after all this travel. You might be tired.
It's not good manners. I would have waited like a couple of days.
And she's like, it is a lot to ask for me to not go heal animals when they could be healed.
You're like, okay, yeah, fucking, let's go.
Pleasantly surprised she cares about the animals as much as he does. He calls Lindhall and they show Dane to the aviary. She is amazed by the space and the love the Carthagi ruler gives his birds. She is also amazed by the beautiful and exotic beauty of the birds themselves.
I apologize for that reuse of beautiful to beauty.
It's fine. Dane and Lindhall are left to tend the birds as Ozorn needs to get back to being the Emperor. Lindhall tells Dane that the Emperor shows his best side with his birds, one of many references to Ozorn being two different people.
Yeah, okay, so there's a lot of that I just have to note, because, it goes right down to him suddenly using the royal we occasionally, and it's definitely in that moment of, compartmentalization.
I'll talk about this at the end.
Yes, let's continue.
How it ties in with his ultimate, his fate at the end of the book.
Yes.
Dane tends to the birds and finds that they have been poisoned by something. Dane considers telling Ozorn about her theory, but Lindhall begs her not to, telling her he will have the slaves killed if he thinks his birds were poisoned, since they are the only ones to have contact with the birds. The next day, Dane has made quite the impression on Ozorn and he is very pleased with her. He will definitely try to convince her to stay. The Tortallans are brought to the menagerie, where they will be shown around by Kadar and a cloying Varese. Dane closes her mind to the animals because she knows this will be rough.
Chapter 3. The menagerie is beautiful and lovingly tended, but is still smaller than living in the wild. We learn that upon Dane joining the royal entourage, Jonathan has begun updating his menagerie to be an open-air zoo. This is my favorite fact we get.
Yeah, it goes from the San Diego Zoo to the San Diego Wild Animal Park.
Yeah. Good. Kadar is amazed and gets excited at the idea, which is how we know in these books that he is a good boy. Dane comes to some animals she has never seen before. Hyenas. She finds them beautiful and powerful looking. She is told by Numair about their strong bite, night vision. I realize I put in superior smelling, but he doesn't say that. And matriarchal packs. Varese butts in. Initially, we assume this is because she wants Numair to herself, but that's only part of it. And says, these animals are off limits. It has a very, there is no war in Ba Sing Se vibe. It's like, oh, no. These are not for the public.
Yeah.
The hyena alpha tells Dane to come back, sensing a fellow fighting female. Varese...
Okay, I would like to say that she uses just the words males and females all the time in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, referring to people, and that bothers me. And I have to remind myself that this is in the 90s.
Yeah.
And but it's very, it bothers me.
Yes. Varese says there's a part of the menagerie Numair has never seen before. She and Kadar bring them to the Immortals collection. What? I had actually forgotten about this part, I'll be real.
Oh, really?
Like, that was like, I was like, oh, shit! Kadar claims his uncle has had these animals brought to him because they were harming humans. These creatures, including man-eating unicorns, killer centaurs, stir-crazy griffins, huroks, which are just normal huroks, they're just always crazy, and cool things. These are not so lovingly kept. Their cages are so small, the winged creatures can't stretch at all. The jewels in this crown of animal cruelty are 2 stormwings. Dane is told that Queen Barja and her mate Hibak were surrendered to Ozorn as part of the pact between Ozorn and the new king of the Stormwings, King Jokun. Dane loses her cool, and...
I read that as Jakun.
Jakun? I could do that.
I don't know.
I just assume everything's, like, kind of ugly sounding with their stuff, so I give it, like Jokun.
Jakun.
Jokun. Jokun Hagar. Sorry. Dane loses her cool and demands to know how they feed them, since Stormwings feast on fear. Don't be silly, Varese tells her. They're immortals. They don't need food to survive. So they are just being kept in there.
Yeah, just, they don't need food. It's like, I see. Never thought I'd feel bad for Stormwings.
It's like, oh. Huh. Yeah. There's a little bit of back and forth between her and the Stormwing queen, but doesn't matter.
They verbally spar.
It's the usual.
Every time they're, It's just Dane with her sassy one-liners.
Yep. Later, Dane returns to her room. There is an old woman cleaning her room. She's bald, so Dane assumes she's a slave. She doesn't seem to even care about the dragon walking around the room, just speaks in riddles to Dane. The old woman talks to Dane about how the gods seem to have turned their backs on Karthak, and alerts her to the biblical plagues which have fallen upon the Empire. Including locusts, fucking drought, famine. Guys, it's not good. It's not good for Karthaki out there.
No.
She tells Dane to have someone take her to the temples then. Okay, here we go. She tells Dane to have someone take her to the temples. Then, having pulled it from under Dane's bed, shoves the tiger pelt into Dane's hands. The tiger is briefly more animated than before, but after Dane takes her eyes off it to close her door, it ceases to be alive just as suddenly as the old woman and the old woman has disappeared. Okay, just as suddenly as it came alive. Sorry. That was poorly worded. It's a weird scene because I had to read it like 5 times to be like, wait, what's happening here? Who's doing what? There's a lot of she said.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's too many she's in this scene, because then another slave appears and it's like,
it's like, which she are we referring to? That's just English for you.
Right. Even later, they go to a diplomatic banquet. Dane is quickly bored out of her mind and told by Duke Gareth the Older to get out of there. Even he doesn't want to be there, so he can't expect her to. Dane goes, but Kitten stays, being the diplomatic dragon she is. In my note of the book, I definitely wrote diplomatic dragon, or the dragon diplomat.
Yeah.
Dane and Zek run into Lindhall, who's very excited to learn more about the marmoset. Lindhall takes Dane to, and in that part, he gives her a line of questioning, and I put a sticky note that says, nerd!
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So good. Lindhall takes Dane to the Hall of Bones. Here, the greatest scientists/mages have assembled dinosaur fossils, and we get to read as Tammy tries to rename dinosaurs while still making sure we know what they are. Like the Great Three-Horn and the Snake-necked.
What, the Tyranny lizards?
Yes, the Tyranny lizards.
The Tyranny lizards.
I love it. The mountain runners,
I love it.
It's so good.
Just love it. Mammoths just get to be called mammoths.
Yeah.
So.
When Lindhall isn't paying attention, Dane touches one of the dinosaurs and accidentally animates it. She adorably waves it away, and Zek thinks it is hilarious. He encourages her to do more, but she is disturbed at this desecration of death. He also shows her, he being Lindhall, also shows her...
No, Zek.
Right. The bodies of mammoths and 4 tusked elephants, because there's apparently difference, so it's like, I was like, okay, all right.
Okay.
That had been frozen and found in perfect condition. Not important, but here Dane says she's just a girl with wild magic, and Karthak won't remember she was ever there. I have a sticky note on that page where stoned Ariana wrote, ah ha 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 ha, gasp, ha 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 ha, exclamation point.
Oh, okay.
It is important to note that. That evening, Dane tells Numair they need to talk, but they are interrupted by a familiar face from the previous book.
Whoa. Okay, so I'm going to read the next 2 chapters because that'll get me chapter 5 I wrote.
Okay.
And I think it'll be easier to say the chapters we wrote for.
Okay.
If possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Lord Rakash, the Stormwing who cared for Lady Mora, is there with King Jokin. I love it.
King Jokin.
King Jokin. As the representatives for the Stormwing Nation. Here, there is a delightfully disdainful back and forth between Numair, Dane, and Rakash. I loved it. It was great.
Delightful. It happens twice, but it's so good.
It is. Because what it is people who know each other really well being assholes to each other. It's like, they're showing affection. And, like, for a Stormwing, he's showing affection here. Come on.
It's so
and they're
good.
just,
I love Rakash.
I do too. Varese, noticing she doesn't have her man candy on her arm, pulls Numair away to sit with her and puts Dane with Prince Kadar. Kadar offers a stool for Kitten, which softens Dane to his company. Dane reveals that since she began taking on animal forms, she can't bring herself to eat wild game, and this gets her and the prince to talking about her powers. Some of the entertainment involves exotic animals trained by diminutive people of the Banjiku tribe, who are also slaves, and it's a little awkward, and I will talk about this later, because I wrote things down about it. The animals immediately have to go see Dane, bringing the whole show to her. The Banjiku, much more close to the wild gods and wild magic than most, see Dane's power and recognize her as a god or god seed. The Banjiku depart, and Tammy thinks it's necessary to tell us this wasn't the last they would see of one another. Like, no, Tammy, we know.
We get it. We understand your writing. We get that that's going to come back.
It's very possible that maybe an editor was like, we don't really, maybe we need to see a connection between these people. I don't know. Dane and Numair get to talk with Rakash again. He asks about Lady Mora, who we learn writes to Dane and misses Rakash terribly. Dane reminds him that he can visit, and he says that once he is free of his duty to King Jokin, I'm just joking. I'll just say it however I say it.
Yeah, whatever.
He'll probably do just that. They go from pleasant to nasty pretty quick, and Dane asks about Queen Barja. Rakash had believed that Jokin had killed her before taking the throne, the Stormwing way. Dane reveals the new king sold the former ruler for his own crown, and Rakash is pissed. Ozorn visits Dane to tell her his birds are doing well, and he owes her a great debt before he vanishes again. Dane steps outside and is found by Prince Kadar. He asks her to go with him to visit the university at some point, stating he has cleared it with Duke Gareth. Tip off. When the prince leaves, and after Dane greets her bat friends, which surely won't come into play later, she sees the old woman from her room talking to Rakash. The old woman disappears before Dane can question her. She demands Rakash tell her, and he is just amazed Dane could see her. He plays coy and just laughs at whatever the woman has planned for Dane. Amazing.
It's really great.
Yeah. Rakash admits he went to the menagerie. He apologizes, he says he's not, but that's an apology in and of itself, for not believing Dane, and says he saw Queen Barja and Hebak. He is pissed and wants revenge on Ozorn. As if on cue, Ozorn comes over to the pair. He is surprised to see them together since they are enemies, but Rakosh says, "We value a good enemy, Imperial Majesty. If I may be permitted to say so, opponents come in many guises. It is well to get to know them all, and it is the best."
It is. It is. Like, I just went, oh, this is such a good fucking line.
It is. Rakosh gives one of his feathers to Ozorn, telling him that if he is ever in mortal peril, the Emperor need only stab himself with the feather, and he will be able to fly from his enemies and out of the Black God's grasp. There is a curious and begrudging respect between Dane and Rakosh from here on out. The next morning, Dane goes to visit the aviary. She questions the birds about their lives and finds they adore Ozorn, and he takes great care of them. The birds all show her her favorite things, their favorite things. They all show her their favorite things, and where their nests are. This doesn't seem important, but it is. As she's wrapping up her visit with turning herself into a bird, people enter the aviary. She lost track of time.
She did.
Ozorn is being pursued by Numair. Having found out that Dane was in her quarters, he panicked and came to accuse his enemy. Ozorn tells him that he wouldn't do that. He intends to reward Dane with whatever her heart desires, and Numair tells him to back off, like how Dane obviously has no idea when she's being flirted with because she never realizes that Ozorn is gently attempting to seduce her in their conversations before this. It does not escape Numair's attention.
Like, he's always, like, casually kind of, like, leaning and looking into her eyes, and it's like, Dane, how do you not get what's going on here?
I feel like, I'm not sure if it was, like, actually intended to be sleazy, but it feels very sleazy because he's older than Numair.
Yeah.
And she's 15.
Yeah.
So.
I have some things to say about all this, but we'll continue forward.
We'll get there. Ozorn tells him I just said that part. Ozorn tells Numair not to concern himself with her, as he will just move on to the next thing that tickles his fancy. Just like Numair left his friendships in the lurch. Subtext. When Numair tells him he doesn't understand human connection, Ozorn accuses him of fucking Dane, and Numair loses his temper and attempts to hit Ozorn before storming out. Oof. After Numair leaves, the Psycho Emperor calmly creates a small image of Numair and proceeds to torture him, so Dane dips the fuck out. Dane
the screams of tiny Numair following her as she runs.
Yeah.
It's upsetting.
Yeah, the fact that he made it scream, like he gave it like a voice to scream and feel things. Like, what the fuck?
Got some real Homelander vibes right there.
Dane goes to breakfast to pull Numair aside to speak with him. Alana tags along because of the impropriety of a young woman being alone with a man in such a strictly customed country. Off the back of his fight with Ozorn, this irks Numair, but since he knows better than to fight with Alana, he agrees. Dane tries to tell the older mages about her visit with the Badger when they were on the ship and the ill portents he hinted at. Alana questions what the gift the Badger gave her is, and she grabs the nearest taxidermied creature, a vulture, bringing it to life.
Which, that happened, and I started laughing uproariously, because she's just like, you want to see what his gift is? Grabs the fucking... It's like...
I know. Oh,
it felt like a Disney movie scene. Do you know what? Like a Disney original, like a Disney Channel original movie.
She's so done this entire book. She's like, "Oh, you want to fucking see what it is? Here's what it is."
Show, don't tell, motherfuckers.
After bringing the vulture to life, Dane is weak. Alana proposes that this is because she actually tried to do it this time, as opposed to the other times when she brought animals back. Numair says that this isn't something wild magic can do. Only gods can bring anything back to life. So they go on about, like, all of the gods who have this power, because it's not all of them, because she's like, maybe the Badger did it, and he's like, no, these, like, he doesn't have that power, like, only, so-and-so, the graveyard hag, and so-and-so, like...
The graveyard hag, Cassoir.
Yeah, but yeah, Numair gives an agate for invisibility, gives Dane an agate for invisibility so she can get the vulture back to her rooms unseen. But on her way out, Dane tells him he shouldn't have tried to hit him, meaning Ozorn, and left. I don't think he liked that. Just like, girl,
shouldn't have tried to hit him. I don't think he liked that.
Yeah. It's like, oh, baby! Once back to her room, Alana pays her a visit to find out the tea on who Numair tried to hit, and when learning it was Ozorn, she was like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, he basically told Ozorn that you're his weakness. After Alana leaves, Kadar comes to get Dane for a tour of the palace city. She remembers what the old slave said to her and asks to see the temples, which Kadar reluctantly agrees to. On their way to the temples, Kadar spots soldiers from the army in the streets, which is expressly forbidden. He goes off to tend to that when Dane sees the old slave woman again in a courtyard feeding rats, which totally normal thing
like
to not question whatsoever. Dane tries to walk towards the old woman, but she finds that the courtyard looks like it's moving away from her as she tries to go towards it. After stopping to catch her breath, the courtyard disappears completely from her sight, and Kadar catches up with her, telling her that he had been yelling for her, but she hadn't stopped. They find themselves in the Sacred District. The temples are poorly looked after, with very few offerings, the exception being for the Temple of Mithros, though Dane is dismayed to find that the priests worship Ozorn like he is an equal to the gods. They go to one last temple where they find a statue that looks like the old slave woman to Dane, and is the temple of the Graveyard Hag.
Bum, bum, bum!
Dane goes to tell Kadar that fact when she can't speak, only cough. Every time she tries to tell him what she knows about the Graveyard Hag, she can only cough. Furious at the hag, Dane stops trying to tell him. She's like, "Oh, you motherfucker.
You stupid bitch."
Pretty much. She's
fucking gods.
She's pissed off in this book. I love it.
It's so good.
Kadar tells Dane, after Kitten shows that they aren't being listened to magically because she has that power, which is awesome.
Yes.
Ozorn decreed that people weren't allowed to give offerings to the gods. Instead, they should spend that money on taxes, and that's why the temples are so neglected.
Which,
Kadar then gives...
Okay, guys, this is not a realm where gods are theoretical. They know the gods are real.
Yeah, they exist.
Frequently have their fucking fingers in the pies of mortals.
Yeah.
How is this a wise decision as a ruler? To detract from the gods? Because he's like, no, the gods are around forever.
I mean, to be honest...
You should give it to me.
Ozorn had a fucked up childhood, so I can see why these things happen. I do not, obviously, I'm not excusing it. The behaviors were, but I can see...
Grew up a racist and hateful person.
It's...
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I agree. Kadar then gives her the choice of where to go next, and she chooses the training yard since Kadar obviously wants to go there to see his friends. He's like,
That's where their date's going now.
Yeah, he's like, we could go see all these other things, or we could go to the training yards. I bet my friends are still there. And she's like, let's go to the training yards then. When seeing his friends, Dane sees Kadar actually look his age for once. All of the kids just treat him like another teen boy and not the heir to the Empire. The boys all try to flirt with Dane, much to her dismay. She's like, why are they doing this?
I can't deal with this. It's just because they don't see unveiled women. Neither do we. Sorry. We don't see veiled women, Dane. Tammy.
They all start to talk about Tortall and how the men there must be, terrible and weak if they lose to women. The queen's riders and the female champion. Ugh. What a world. They all start to talk shit. And so Dane gets angry and challenges them to an archery contest. She's like, fine, I'll fucking beat you. She chooses a longbow just for the spite of it, to be honest. They're like, oh, you can never bend that, let alone shoot it. And she's like, fucking try me. And she, looks them straight in the eyes while she's stringing the bow. And then she immediately shoots, every arrow into the bullseye so far that they have to cut them out. The boys go wild and offer to let her try the recurved bow they use in Karthag. She's just like, I would like to try the new bow.
I'd like to try that bow. And everybody's shoving theirs at her. Look, you can try mine. Take mine. Oh my god. She could kill us.
So cool.
I like her.
She's so cool.
One of them definitely discovered that he's really into being dominated by women, and he had no idea until that very moment.
I sure hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Chapter 6. Dane and Kadar return to the palace. This is her first time coming in the entrance since the first day when she was soaked in carrying Zek, so she notices, suddenly, the two statues of Ozorn. One statue portrays the man, adorned with no jewels or fine clothes, but covered in birds and with stacks of books and scrolls at his feet. The other portrays the Emperor, draped in robes, holding scepter, and wielding his power. Kadar half jokes that his uncle is two-faced. Ariana stares into the camera like Jim from The Office. Some ambassadors come out of the peace talks. The talks seem to have soured, and it's not looking good, which is weird because it was so fine before. What happened? Just then, the two statues are struck by lightning coming from a clear blue sky and melted into molten gold. Everyone kind of just silently stands there for a second and then runs back inside without saying a goddamn word. So, Dane returns to her room and finds that the vulture has gone. The graveyard lad is what I was about to say.
Yes, the graveyard lad.
The graveyard lad. The graveyard hag left her a note stating she took the vulture for safekeeping and promises they will talk soon. Dane is so done with the gods. That night, the banquet is held on a vessel for a show of power by the Emperor. The vessel is powered by magic and moves quickly, and Dane thinks this is a waste of magic. Kadar asks if she wants to go to the university the next day, and she agrees. She asks what Ozorn said when Kadar told him about the lightning, and he hushes her. Kadar tells Dane his uncles have spies who read lips. Concerned, the opposite. Concerned, Dane asks if there's a lot he's not permitted to talk about, showing once again his lack of power and say in his own home. Numair comes over and gives Kadar the 3rd degree, much to Dane's chagrin.
I wrote this down while I was reading, just so I could look at the page number, and then Numair LMAO. That's what I wrote.
Oh,
that's because it is truly just fantastic.
It really is.
Which page is it? 150? Yeah, 150.
Because on one side, I did that drawing of a smiling face with a little sweat bead, on behalf of Kadar and Dane, because he shows up and he's just like, hey, how's it going? And Dane's kicking him under the table, and he's like, Dane, please stop kicking me.
No. I want to actually read this, to be honest. Okay. They had just finished their main course, stuffed goose, when Numair came over to their table. May I join you? He asked and sat down. He leaned forward, smiling at the prince. We haven't really had a chance to chat. I understand you're studying with my friend Lindhall Reed. The prince nodded. Dane peeled an orange for Zek while Kitten munched on a goosebone. What course of studies, may I ask? Oh, the relation of men, animals, and plants to one another, with a matching course in law. Blah, 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 blah. 5 years is a long time. I see. Commendable. With regard to your position as his heir, has your uncle arranged a marriage for you? Dane looked sharply at her teacher. What was he doing, asking such a personal question? Kadar passed his goosebones to Kitten. He is negotiating with the king of Gala for the hand of one of his daughters. There's also a princess in the Copper Isles who my uncle feels is a possibility. I see, but you are involved with girls, are you not? Students at the university, young noblewomen. Are they aware you're not permitted to marry to please yourself? Dane, cheeks flaming, kicked Numair under the table. Kadar stiffened. No gentleman deceives a woman in that manner, sir. Indeed not. Stop kicking me, Dane. You understand. Indeed not. Stop kicking me, Dane. You understand she's very important to a number of powerful nobles and mages in Tortall. Numair's voice was quiet, almost friendly. His eyes were hard. Their Majesties, Lady Alana and her husband, the Baron of Pirate Swoop, me. All of us would take it amiss if we thought for one moment she was being trifled with, particularly by a young man who wasn't free to do the right thing by her. Numair, Dane growled. Can I speak to you privately for a moment? No. Stepping on my foot won't work either. Do I make myself clear, Prince Kadar? Oh yes, I understand you well. Good. Numair stood. It seemed to take him forever to rise. When he was up, he looked taller than ever, and faintly shadowy around the edges. Lindhall tells me you have an excellent memory. I hope so.
And then he just stomps away, and it's just like,
I just fucking love it. I love that so much. Just the it sounds like something you'd do, Ariana. just the whole thing of just sitting down there and very cheerfully saying, "Hey, I'm fucking watching you," and the just being able to just talk over Dane, being like, it's not gonna work. Stop kicking me. So
I love this scene, but I also wrote on a sticky note, Numair has zero chill.
He does. But like I said, it seems like something you'd do, Ariel.
Probably. So after that dick swinging,
yeah. It's funny, because then I'm the one who got bogged down by reading several pages. But I fucking love that dialogue. The dialogue in this book is so much better than the other books.
It honestly has some of my favorite scenes.
It does.
Like, ever. Like, that one, the one with him and Ozorn in the aviary.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Despite it being super short, just her going, you shouldn't have tried to hit him.
Yeah, it's
like
so
that.
very,
It just
like,
sticks. It's the wording.
cinematic.
It all sticks really clearly in your mind.
Yeah, like, I see it so clearly of her just, like, walking, like, and how she would look, even though she's invisible, just looking over her shoulder with, like, the light just hitting her back, and she's, like, I can just see it.
For his show of force, Ozorn has the vessel lifted with magic. And it's very, like... I tried to describe everything, basically, because I got really bogged down in it. But, like, basically, all of the mages use their power to raise it from the water onto a dry dock, I think?
I
wasn't
understand.
really clear of what was
I thought it was
physically
like
happening.
it just lifted it and put it back in the water was what I understood, but
basically,
I might be wrong.
It's just a show of force to be like, hey, look, I've got these mages who are so fucking powerful that they can lift an entire ship. So don't fuck with my naval forces.
Yeah, and then he shows all of the naval forces as well.
Yeah, he shows that as well, and it pisses Kadar off. Kadar is like, he could use this magic to help people, to end the famine. And it's like, oh, he's a good boy. But Varys is like, what are you doing? You need to shut up. And he keeps going. And so Dane is like, no, she's right. Shut the fuck up. And finally, Kitten's like, it's fine, I got it. And puts her mouth on his leg and is like, and Dane's like, she will bite if I tell her to. Shut up. Oh, and Varys has that moment where she's like, or do you want to
end up
or do you forget what happened to his last heir? And it's like, ooh, they don't actually say anything about what happened, but it's like, fuck.
Yeah, he's in a line of heirs that have not had pleasant ends.
Which is amazing, considering the throne is clearly cursed, given what we see of Ozorn's ascent. But anyway.
Yeah. Same shit.
Right? Fuck.
That's just the way they do things, Ariana. God.
But suddenly, the entire vessel comes face to face with the first Emperor of Carthage. Apparently, his statue decided to join the party and points to Ozorn to shout in Old Thak, woe to the Empire! We are forsaken! The gods are angry! And it feels like there's only one meaning you can get from that, but
apparently
hold
not.
on to your hats, kids. That night, hold on to your crazy hats. Sorry, what was I doing? Oh, the hag enters Dane's dreams that night. I have to note here, because, like, do you think that for the hag, Tammy took any kind of inspiration from Madame Mim from The Sword and the Stone?
Because
exactly. That's all I can imagine.
That's exactly in my head. Thank you for saying that, because it's exactly what I was thinking too.
Like, she just bounces around and she just appears and disappears. She feels like she's constantly moving and
yes.
And yet she's still also like, oh, so old and
yes.
And she's also very flirty, and it's like, okay, this is absolutely the magnificent and marvelous Madame Mim.
Honestly.
And I said that, and my boyfriend Meister goes, I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you talking
I don't
about?
remember that movie. I was like, how can you not? Anyway, oh, the hag tells Dane that the girl is her chosen vessel. But she may not even have to use her if Ozorn just wisens up. Latching onto the wrong parts of it. Dane's like, well, can't you tell if he's aren't you all knowing? Can't you just make him? And she's like, no. There are rules the gods have to follow, and in fact, a limit to their powers. Not that Dane really listens. She's just annoyed to have to be there. And so
she truly
the hag
is.
Literally, like, she's trying so hard to be like, oh, we're girls together. And you want some snacks by my rat servants? Because rats worship the old hag.
Yeah.
And then she's like, you know what? You don't appreciate me. Go away. And she wakes up.
I know. I love that.
My favorite part. And I was like, oh, I'm the hag. As opposed to other parts of this book where I'm like, why am I Dane, though? Dane and Alana talk the next morning. Alana reveals that a part of why the peace talks fell apart is that Ozorn demanded Princess Callison of Tortall be married to Kadar. Since she is only 10 years old, no one agrees to this, and they know the queen would object in a much more terrifying way. Like, can you imagine Queen Theet if she found out her daughter was just going to be shipped off to be married to some guy? She'd be like, hell no.
Yeah, pretty
Hell
much.
fucking no. Basically, Ozorn purposefully tanked the talks by asking for something he couldn't have. Alana warns Dane that she has a bad feeling and tells her to be careful and ready to get out of there quickly if it comes. I don't know if she actually says that, I'm realizing, but I know it was definitely in tone. Dane and Kadar go to the university. Dane quickly realizes there are no slaves there, and Kadar says that the mages don't allow it. Too many of them are northerners, and they are uncomfortable with the practice, which is a very mild way of putting that. Dane confesses she is also made uncomfortable, even though she has kept it hidden from him. It makes her animal self think of cages, and she hates cages. Kadar admits that she's not what he imagined, and she confesses the same. Which is so cute. It's so cute. They're so cute. Like, part of me is like, they're such good friends, and part of me is like, I ship them so hard. Lindhall greets them and brings them to his quarters. Here we find happy iguanas and a turtle, all so happy to be there. Lindhall, unsurprisingly, has a thing for animals. Dane briefly... and I did not note, he tells her that he wants her to ask the iguanas if they are happy there, and he doesn't want to... He's like, I do my best, I give them what they're supposed to have, but I don't want to be cruel.
Yeah, do they like it?
Like,
and they all say they love it.
They love it. They love him. They love the freedom he gives them, and they don't even really notice or care that they're not... in the wild. They're like, we love this man. He keeps us safe. Anyway, Dane briefly notices what looks like a body in one of Lindhall's rooms, but he quickly closes the door. And therefore, it's compartmentalized, and Dane forgets about that compartment.
She just has no object permanence. It's okay. Me neither.
Suddenly, Kit gets upset at a person with invisibility spell, and it drops to reveal Numair. Chapter 7. Dane demands to know what Numair is doing there. The three men confess that this was all planned because there was no way for Numair and Kadar to speak without Ozorn finding out. Numair has a very lifelike simulacrum in his room, and he is not permitted to leave, or as he is not permitted to leave the palace. Dane is hurt she wasn't trusted with this information, but gives them privacy, as she would rather check out Lindhall's aviary anyway.
Yeah. She's like, okay, fuck off, I'm gonna go see the bird.
Like she starts to get mad, but they're...
And listen...
Fuck you guys, you're just two-leggers. I don't give a shit about you.
Pretty much.
I'm gonna go hang out with the people. The aviary is filled with lovely northern flora and beautiful, happy birds. The aviary actually also has a small fossil in limestone, missing some pieces. Since this was an incomplete skeleton, Dane figured it wouldn't be an issue if she touched it. She, as usual, wasn't right.
Never right.
I don't know why she makes these fucking assumptions. Upon touching the skeleton, it comes to life and begins to peel itself from the slab. Dane realizes she isn't alone and sees Lindhall, Kadar, and Numair have seen what she has done. The skeleton moves with invisible chunks where it is missing bones and is able to fly, lacking any of the necessary parts, like, at all. There's no skin, there's nothing, but he seems to preen feathers that aren't even there.
I know, I love it.
It's so good. I know I didn't write it here because he names him later, but, like, Lindhall immediately attaches himself to this thing and is like, I am calling him Bone Dancer.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'll call you Bone Dancer, and you will be my bony friend.
Yeah, he imprinted.
He is not thrown one bit by it being a skeleton.
No. I mean, he's an academic mage. Like, they don't seem to notice that things are weird.
At all.
They're like, yeah, okay. No, okay. I'll accept that.
I was in my classroom, right? And this, like, god came in and was just demanding I do a spell for them. And I was like, okay, man. And I did it. And then I went to lunch. Numair tells Dane to explain what has happened to Kadar and Lindhall, as they are both safe to give this information to. Kadar realizes that if his uncle knew this, no force in the world would be able to keep him from obtaining Dane. The ability to raise the dead is super powerful. Dane waits quietly as the men slowly piece together that this is the work of the hag. Dane doesn't want to start coughing again, so she lets them work it out. That night at dinner, she's just like, I don't feel like it. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I don't care. She's so done, you guys. She's over everything.
And the hag is in her mind like, don't go tell him
don't go tell him.
And then
she is like, ooh, not a single one of these guys is under 6 feet tall. Makes a girl feel fragile.
I know.
It's like, Madam Mim, can you go away, please?
I know.
That night at dinner, everyone is chatting. Dane actually asks Kadar to come back to Tortall, and he admits that his family would be in danger if he did. Suddenly, from out of a beautiful cake, of which Varys is very proud, come thousands of dock rats.
Yeah.
Dane realizes the hag has put a portal in the cake and ushered her royal rats with... She just put a portal in the cake.
Just why not?
There's a portal in the cake now. Suck it, bitch. I feel like the hag probably doesn't like Varys very much. Seems like someone who'd get on her nerves. Anyway, Dane uses her power to actually make the rats go back the way they came. So help me. While Dane is getting rid of the rats, one of the men yells at Ozorn that he can't keep ignoring these warnings. So Ozorn just burns him up with magic.
Yeah.
NBD. So after the excitement, everyone disperses, and at her request, Kadar brings Dane to his uncle's menagerie. Kadar has access to a large ring of keys, and Zek takes a liking to the idea of keys. He thinks they're magic, and I love it.
He does. I love Zek. I would die for Zek.
Guys, Zek is the best thing in the world, and I love him. And he was taken from his wife and his babies, and I hate that, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. It makes me sad. Dane goes to every animal enclosure to get... It is important to note, though, that she left Zek with Kadar. And the trade-off was Zek was like, can I play with the keys?
Yeah.
Dane goes to every animal enclosure and gives the animals the ability to return home in their minds. While they may be stuck in these small enclosures, they can go into their minds and be free. And I cried a bit.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely.
By a bit, I mean a lot. When Dane goes to the hyenas, Kadar warns against it. He reveals that Ozorn fears the hyenas because of a prophecy they will bring his downfall. He would have killed them all if he could. Kadar suddenly remembers that hyenas are sacred to the graveyard hag, who is their, patron god. Caswell. Dane meets with the hyena female, Tiu, and, quote, her boys.
Yeah.
Aran and Irie. She goes into Tiu's mind and realizes how incredibly they smell, likening it to how bats use their echolocation. Before leaving, Dane offers the mind escape, and the hyenas laugh. They will take reality, and I respect that.
They're like, wow, there are so many new smells here. We're into it.
Are you kidding? Then we wouldn't be able to smell the amazing fear that comes from Ozorn when he comes to look at us.
Yeah.
It's intoxicating. Kadar makes them go quickly to the Immortals chamber where they hear someone in there. Afraid of what someone could do with immortal ingredients, Kadar cannot walk away, so Kit magics the lock to let them in.
Inside the Immortals menagerie, they find human slaves worshipping the caged immortals. Among them are the Banjiku. Dane verbally spars with Queen Barja Razorwing, who then calls Dane a mortal, something the Banjiku Tano disagrees with. He tells them all that she has to be the child of a god.
This has to be. Okay, there's literally no other
remember,
way.
I said this earlier. just putting it back out there. When a griffin makes a ruckus, Tano leads them through the slave tunnels, out to the gardens near the guest quarters. In the gardens, Kadar tells Dane that it should be raining this time of year, and it isn't, which is leading to drought and famine in the south. He then takes her back to her rooms.
I have to note that in this part, after she leaves Tano, she gives him a kiss on the cheek before she walks away, and I wrote on a sticky note, so she definitely just accidentally blessed this guy, and she has no idea, because she absolutely did.
Yeah. In her dream that night, Dane is at a crossroads arguing with the graveyard hag. The hag's trying to get her to go to a human cemetery, but she wants to go see the dinosaur fossils instead. Emboldened in her dream state, Dane tells the goddess off. She then goes the way she wants, slowly at first, before waking up not in her bed, but in the Hall of Bones. Realizing she must have sleepwalked, Dane turns around, Kitten on her heels, which she's not questioning why Kitten's there with her.
Kitten followed her into her dream.
I fucking love that. But instead trips over the nest of the mountain runner lizards, and her hand goes straight into the eggs. After a bright flash, she sees all the baby dinos, then promptly faints. Dane finds herself and Kitten walking in a trail through the woods. She walks towards a cottage and finds the badger arguing with the god she now knows is Weirin.
She gets it now.
She gets it now. They are arguing about Dane being involved with the graveyard hag. Dane sees her ma come out of the cottage, who sees Dane and stops. After arguing further for a moment, the Badger takes Dane back away from the cottage in the woods. He confirms that the man with the horns she's been seeing is in fact her Da.
I have to note there that in that fight, let's see, when they see her, Weirin is like, now look at that, you left her alone and she fucking died. Basically, this is what happens when you leave her alone. And the Badger just comes back, look, if you're feeling paternal, now's not the time. You should have done it yourself. And I love it. I love it. I lived for that exchange.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah. Badger is like the cool uncle, I guess.
Apparently.
Dane wakes up in the Hall of Bones with the Badger and Kitten, as well as all of the resurrected dino babies.
Little dino babies.
I love them. The Badger scolds Dane for using too much of her power and draining her own life force. She then argues with him that he didn't explain the power well enough, so it's his fault this happened. Which, fair. And he goes, no wait, I totally told you. And she goes, no, you fucking didn't. The Badger tells her that the Graveyard Hag has granted her this power to further her own ends in the country. We find out that in Carthag, the Graveyard Hag is the boss, even over the great gods like Mithros or the Goddess. The Badger confirms that the resurrected animals don't experience pain when they die again. He then leaves with the dino babies in tow. The next morning, Dane wakes up exhausted. She lets Kitten and Zek sleep in while she goes out. Jane uses her magic to check on the Emperor's birds and finds that they are sick again, so she leaves a note in the common room and goes to check on them in the aviary. Ozorn is there and asks her to breakfast with him, which she sidesteps by asking to check in on his birds first. She finds the sick birds and heals them, but notices that their poop is wrong. She asks the birds what they eat, and they show her in their minds a green food, which is just great, apparently, which she figures out is salt in the enamel on the windows, which they are ingesting with the lead in the enamel. She uses her magic to tell all of the birds to stop eating the fucking lead. She just, imposes it into their minds.
See this? No.
Don't eat it.
This is a no-no.
And she heads to Ozorn to tell him to replace the enamel with something not dangerous. Ozorn calls slaves to help Dane clean herself with bird droppings so that they can breakfast together, making her feel very uncomfortable. When they sit down to eat, he raises a toast to birds and downs his pomegranate juice. Good manners dictate that she do the same, much to her dismay. He rambles to her about how he knows that the gods are mad at him because he let Numair live, obviously, as she starts to have trouble staying awake. He tells her that he slipped her dream rose and that she will move to Carthag and get riches and titles after he executes Numair.
Everything will be fine as long as Numair dies. It's fine.
Yeah, and then he reads, it's a fantastic line. Sleep was wrapped around her like a cloud-filled blanket. Numair. Ozorn stood. He dies, my dear. The gods demand a blood sacrifice, and so do I. I'm like, you are so dramatic.
It's like, no, the gods spoke to me. I need to kill him.
Yeah.
He spurned my love. I have to kill him.
Smite, this is like the ultimate, my ex ruined my life.
Right. Chapter 9. Dane loses her temper.
That is the name of this. The name of the chapter is Dane Loses Her Temper. Please keep that in mind as we describe what happens in this chapter.
In her drugged sleep, Dane has strange dreams. She sees from Zek's point of view as Kitten is magicked into a stasis and taken. Ozorn has the slaves remove all of Dane's things and tries to get Zek as well. Zek, having been made more clever by being with Dane, makes a break for it and sets about to find his human and get things back to normal. She sees the entire Tortallan party has been taken under guard to a ferry to be sent back home. They reveal Ozorn spread the lie that Dane ran off and is going to radicalize the slaves into rebellion. Alana and Numair, aware of what's really going on, but powerless to fight it, fret over Dane. They will not leave her there willingly, especially not Numair, who would rather die. Dane awakens to find herself on a bed mat on the floor of a white plaster cell. She has woken to find her worst nightmare come to life. She is caged. In her anguish, she cries out, and her wild magic reaches the animals above. She can feel them all reacting and turning on their humans. She also feels them pay for their insolence and asks them to stop, because they start killing folk. They start killing the people, and it's not good. She feels them dying, and she's like, no, guys, stop. This isn't worth it. Stop. However, thankfully, she did that, because Zek and the cheetah chirp. Someone approaches her place of capture and she fears the worst. In comes a cheetah with a proud Zek on his back. The marmoset holds up his prized keys, which he finally has gotten to put to use.
Yeah.
He's so smart. Zek and the cheetah Chirp bring Dane to the Benjaku performers. She is in slave tunnels and safe from Ozorn's magic for now. Tano, seemingly the leader of this group, confirms Dane's visions when she slept were true, and that Ozorn plans to go to war. Per her instructions from the Badger, Dane tells the Banjaku that Lushagui never meant for them to be slaves. Fucking colonials weaponizing local religions. That's all that is.
Yep.
That's.
Yeah.
Anyway, as Dane requested, Tano brings Kadar to Dane. The poor prince has to be the one to tell Dane that Numair has been executed. Immediately, she goes into denial, but Kadar confirms because he was forced to watch. Something in Dane snaps, and she goes into a cold self-preservation and vengeful state. Dane instructs the Banjaku to get the birds and slaves out of the palace, and Kadar to get anyone he loves out. Dane is going to bring Ozorn's palace down. Dane and Zek go to the Hall of Bones, and Dane begins to awaken the dinosaurs. The Graveyard Hag, however, shows up and is like, I'd rather you did it with humans. And she's like, bitch, I know you would. I don't wanna.
I fucking love that scene because she's like, what you would have done should have been done ages ago, and because you didn't do it, this is what I'm going to do. You're gonna like it, or you're gonna shut up.
And I wrote in a note that this is Gen Z talking to boomers and Gen X being like, motherfuckers, y'all didn't act, we're on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yes.
I absolutely love that.
So yeah, she, through a longly described series of awakening each and every kind of dinosaur and mammoth.
Yeah, she really tells us every single fucking one.
It is so good. But I didn't want to write it.
It's lengthy.
It's like what?
It's lengthy.
It is lengthy.
So then yeah.
She goes and starts to fucking rampage.
They rampage through the palace until they come to... Oh, also, didn't say this, but Dane has to make a deal with the rats in the palace.
Oh, yeah.
So that they will lend her the wild magic to bring all the dinosaurs to life so she doesn't just kill herself again. So...
The hag does help with this because she's like,
Yes.
well, you're going to need my rats. You're going to have to make it worth their while, but I'll tell them to come here.
So she says, if you guys help me right now, I will warn all of the cats and dogs of the palace to not hunt you for a year and a day.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
You guys get free
They're
run
like,
of this
sure.
area. You will have all of the food. No one will be able to get to you, and no one will try.
Yeah. So then she and her army are like rampaging, and we get to listen to them just go through like the baths and shit like that. They get to the kitchens and they find Varese just like crying, and Dane is like, pick her up, and she's just like, did you know? Were you there? Did you like help him find Numair to kill him? And Varese is like, you probably don't believe me, but I'm like heartbroken about this.
Well, and the only pause that Dane gives is because Zek goes, she doesn't seem happy. Look at her. She isn't pretty colored, and because throughout the book we see her wearing beautiful clothing and makeup and smelling wonderfully, but here she is in literally a gray, like, just tunic.
Yeah, and she then feels actual, like, she's like, Varese, leave. I don't have any quarrels with you. Leave now if you want to live.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not... Just watch where you walk.
Yeah.
Just this sharing of grief that they have at that moment, I think it's another great scene. Mm-hmm. And it sticks with me. Every time I think about this book, I think about that scene, to be honest. After leaving Varese, Dane and her army make their way to Ozorn's rooms. A line of soldiers bar the door, but her dinos quickly scare them off. The spiked three-horn smashes through the door, only to be destroyed by orange fire. The other dinosaurs charge into the room, some being destroyed by more orange fire, but the mage Chioke, the, like, head mage of Carthak, is lying on the other side, crushed to death. Hell yeah.
Which is kind of, yeah. Upon reading it now, super gratifying. Super.
Like, there are many reasons to hate this man.
Yeah, for real.
None, yeah.
No.
Dane ushered the destroyed dinos back to their afterlife and gets to see them as they once were before their skeletons disappear. Dane and her army continue on to Ozorn's rooms, but find them empty, as well as his aviary. They head out to the gardens to see more ruined dinosaur skeletons, who Dane helps back to the afterlife. Dane is then greeted by a bat, which gives her an idea. She has all of the bats in the area go look for Ozorn, but they all come back and say they don't see him. Behind her, she hears an offer of help from the hyenas from the menagerie. The hyenas say that they were set free by the hag, which Rakash, who lands nearby, confirms. He also confirms that Kitten is in the Immortals menagerie asleep, and that the Immortals cages will only open if Ozorn opens it or he dies. The hyenas offer to hunt with Dane, so she shapeshifts into a hyena. They get Ozorn's scent from his rooms and track him that way. Dane stops along the way to help dinosaurs back to the afterlife, and the hyenas are like, does it hurt them to die? And she's like, no, but it hurts me.
Yeah.
And it's like, aw. The hyenas note that Ozorn must be running out of magic, as each skeleton they see is less and less burned. They find him and corner him in the Immortals menagerie, trying to get away on the griffin that has gone completely bonkers. So they get there, and he's like, shit. And, like, he's, like, protecting himself, and Dane fucking just gives herself a concussion, basically, as a hyena running headfirst into it. But she's there, and then she hears, like, she's so focused on killing Ozorn, she hears, like, Kadar enter with someone else who sounds familiar, but she's in hyena mode, and she's just not
She's just ready to eat him.
Yeah, and Kadar is like, you need to abdicate the throne. And Ozorn's like, abdicate? You're fucking, no, I got this storm wing feather.
This'll keep me alive.
And so he stabs himself with the feather, and he turns into a stormwing, and can no longer do human magic, and can no longer hold human, titles. Immortals are not allowed to reign over mortals. So
all
he's
in
no
one
longer emperor.
All in one swift stab to his arm, he loses both the emperor and the mage parts of himself.
Yeah, exactly. So then the queen is like, okay, now he's a subject of my court, so we're gonna deal with this. And so Rakash and is she Barja? Yeah, Barja and Hebak all fly off and after him. But Rakash, before he leaves, he's like, Dane, you should look around. And then he left, and she's like, what? And she, like, turns around, and Numair is there. And she immediately turns back into naked Dane. And she's like, no, it's not. This is heartless. This is so terrible of you to do this to me. Like, this is just a simulacrum. And they're like, no, it's not. And Numair's like, okay. And he's, like, saying things that only he would know, and there's no way that a simulacrum would do that. And she's like, but... And then he, like, just puts his cloak on her and then just, like, brings her in for a hug. And she's like, they killed you!
Kadar and Varese, they saw it! He's like, no. I had a very, very lifelike simulacrum made and shipped to Lindhall.
Yeah.
That body shape that was in our room that, Dane just kind of put away there.
Yep.
Yeah. And she asked him, but why didn't you tell me about this? He's like, I guess I forgot.
Yeah.
Just like Dane forgot the things were there because they are
yeah.
ADD pair.
And then the graveyard hag shows up and she's like, okay, thanks for doing that. I'll take my power back now. And then Dane faints and sleeps for 3 days, and it's the end of the book.
Oh, but not before,
Oh, yeah, the hag is like, Kadar, handsome, tell me about yourself.
Yeah. Kadar's like, you're a great one. I know that this has been shit and you guys haven't been worshipped, but could you speak on behalf of Karthak? Because we are going to go back to worshipping. We're going to go back to, being, like, good subjects and shit, and you can do whatever you want again. She's like, okay. Now, here's the thing. I like fresh flowers.
Not the cheap incense.
Not the cheap stuff. No.
Yeah. And
Your uncle used to bring me the most beautiful flowers when he was a youth, and then he stopped.
Yeah. Oh, he wooed me. That's more like it, she said.
So then in the epilogue, I kept expecting Kadar to really ask Dane to stay. Like, he does, but I was expecting more because, like, Alana is like, come on, Numair, we're gonna leave those two alone. Like, Alana is wingmanning it up in this book, guys.
Yeah, because she's the reason that, like, at the beginning of the book, she's like, Kadar offers his arm to her, and she's like, oh, you don't want to be stuck with an old lady like me, which, by the way, Alana's only, like, early 30s here.
Alana thought she was old when she was 18. Do you remember that?
Yeah, she did. Yeah. I mean, like, I get it.
In the Song of the Lioness equivalent to this book.
Yeah, so, but she's like, oh, you don't want to be with an old lady like me on a beautiful day like this.
Go be with that cute little thing who's taller than me, but I'm going to call her a little thing.
Yeah, I mean...
But everyone's taller than her.
I love how Alana's 5'2". And then, she finds out that Lindhall's coming with them.
Yeah.
And he asks her, like, what can I do to pay you back for all of this? And she goes, let the slaves go. At least let the Bunjiku go and the Emperor's personal slaves, whoever wants to be gone. Let them go, give them money to start decent lives. And he's like, okay, fine. I did say I'd do everything. Like, do anything. And then she's like, you should also think about your other slaves and setting them free. And he's like, but it would just bankrupt the shut the fuck up.
She's like, it may be hard, but you're gonna have to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. Like, the economic impact, yeah, whatever. Just
what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
And then in my copy, as always, I read the afterword. So first of all, she starts it with, I had fun writing this book, and I think it shows. It absolutely does, ma'am. A nasty old lady who happens to be the neglected and angry patron goddess of the empire. A trickster goddess. Which means that she cheats. Oh, there's another part where,
when she's in the dream, and she's like, oh, no, I'll roll you for it. And she goes, no, you cheat. I'm like, Jesus, Dane.
No, but I read this one part, Alana held her. No one can refuse a god. Her voice was kind. Yeah. It's over. Yeah. And you're but no, it's damn it, I didn't read the part though. But anyway, I was like, it's setting up Allie.
It is, yeah.
But, the other part that I was going to read was one that just, genuinely surprised me when I just was flipping around the book like I do because I'm ADD and I can't concentrate on one thing for too long. Where is it? So she had trouble with the Emperor Mage himself, bringing him to life in the book. And so she writes, then one night, she and her husband, were half watching the heavy metal hour on music television. The video they were showing had just switched to concert footage of a dark and ominous band singing about a man roaming in the night. Suddenly from above, a seat in the shape of a giant... Oh my gosh. Suddenly from above, a seat in the shape of a giant cupped hand began to descend. In it was heavy metal singer Ozzy Osbourne. His hair in its usual mane, his eyes colored above and below with black liner. He wore a white tunic with pearls and white leggings, and his fingers and toenails were painted black. He looks like petulant and somehow dangerous at the same time. I pointed to him and I told my husband, there's my evil emperor. And so that's how Ozzy Osbourne became Ozorn.
Oh my god.
And I am so angry to learn that and yet also happy because, oh my god, that is the most delightful thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what did we like about the book?
I liked everything pretty much.
I was a huge, that's such a good book. It's so good. I love the chapter titled Dane Loses Her Temper, where she goes on a rampage.
Yeah.
And she's like, we're not gonna aim for two-leggers, but if they get in the way, that's their own fault.
They chose.
Yeah, that's basically what her feelings. She's cold.
There are no feelings in this scene. Yeah.
That is my favorite type of character beat, where the one who's super caring suddenly snaps and is just pushed too far, and they become incredibly cold and calculating, and they're just no longer connecting with emotions.
So good.
Fucking love that so much. It's Dark Willow, So I also love that, unlike Alana and Kel later on, Dane has no qualms with killing bad people. Yeah. She's we gotta just fucking kill the Emperor. I'm going to hunt him down and tear him apart as a hyena.
Basically, that is the... Or in the last one, I'm going to hunt down fucking... I mean, she didn't end up killing her, but, like, she would have killed...
Yeah.
Yosane?
Yolaine.
Right. Not Yolanda.
No. Yolaine.
Yeah.
I mean, she did kill an entire camp of bandits.
Exactly.
In
it's honestly, it's a very, like, animal-rooted... We cannot let something that could hurt the pack be around. That is an unnecessary danger. Like, we'll avoid it at all costs, but eventually it comes to a point where you have to face things head on, and she does, in a very literal sense.
She sure does.
But yeah, I loved that. So good.
So, what? I mean, wait, there was one more thing I remember writing down that, 245. Right towards the end, there was something incredibly dramatic. Oh, okay. It wasn't the dramatic thing. It was the scene between Dane and the graveyard hag. Mm. What you would have done, you should have done years ago, Dane cried, voice breaking. If you hadn't let it go, things might not have come to this state. But you didn't, and you left it to me, so now we'll do it like I want to. Add your own flourishes if you wish, but either help me or get out of my way. Oh, she's and just... then later, my heart bleeds buttermilk, Dane snapped. The graveyard hag shook her stick at the girl. If I didn't need you, but you do. You said it yourself. Vessels are hard to come by, so can we get on with it, please? I need strength to wake up all these big ones. Oh my god. And that's just like, Dane in this book is so, she's done. She is. I love that for her.
I couldn't help but note I keep finding myself imagining all of these books, like the Alana series as well. I keep like imagining them kind of in movie form and like how I'd change things script wise. And basically I have found that, it works better for me if she's 13 in that first one and then she ends up turning 14 during that year. And then she is 15, in Wolf Speaker. And then she's 17 in this book. Oh, okay. It works better. It's a very like coming of age moment of, no, I have to, because there's a moment because early towards the beginning of the book, she's got more of a like childishness to her. She maintains that Dane innocence. But then, honestly, as soon as she starts hanging out with Kadar, like teenager comes out. She starts being a little bit more like, she's becoming more of an adult. Like, she doesn't think it, but she is. And she's, like, learning to make the hard choice. I feel like it'd go better with her being, like, 17. It also makes the next book better. I mean,
it gets creepy in this book, I would say.
It does a little bit.
And that kind of leads into what I didn't like as much. I did and I didn't like the, like, Ozorn, like, flirting with her because he's a sleazeball. So, like, it's interesting. And she does it in a better way in Will of the Empress and the circle stuff. Yeah. It is so, like, she does the same kind of thing, though, but it is just fan-fucking-tastic. It is so much better than this one. Yeah. So, I kind of have mixed feelings about it then. Yeah. But I think my biggest criticism of this book is, Tammy, we gotta talk about how you refer to black people in these early books, because it's not good. She, specifically, I wrote down...
that Kadar was the light-skinned black.
He was a light-skinned black with thin lips and long... The light-skinned He was black. A light-skinned black. Yeah. Just, like, and it's not a capitalized B.
Yeah. It's... So... Like, I understand... Like... And, like, at least she doesn't fall into the typical literary pitfalls of
saying they're like food.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she doesn't go, with rich chocolate.
Yeah, or like caramel brown, you know. Mm-hmm. But it's still like, again, that in the 90s that was not cool. That, like, I cannot give her that one. Mm-hmm. It's just oof. It's very oof. And the Bunjiku, I think, is a huge oof. just the fact that it's like this race of people who are black and they are slaves because they think their god wants them to be slaves and that they like being slaves, and I don't like that. That's very uncomfortable, and then them only being set free because the protagonist, not of their culture, comes and frees them by being like, suddenly being like, your god didn't ever mean for you to do this, and then them just being like, we'll think about it. Like, this one bitch just said that, but sure, we'll think about it. Like, I didn't like that. Like, I enjoy what came of that, but it was, like, it just was not, like, I would love it to be rewritten.
Like I said, in the book form, or the movie form, rather, I have in my head, it's handled so much better.
Yeah. Also very weird, because when I first read this book, I was seeing Ozorn as black, and he's not. I always assumed he was, and then read Tempest and Slaughter, and she referred to his ivory skin, and I was like, are you telling me
his ivory skin,
Ozorn is black, isn't black? He's not. For some reason, in the Egypt equivalent, the Emperor is white. But now that I know that it's because he's based off of fucking Ozzy Osbourne, Ozorn, it makes more sense now.
It does make more sense now.
So,
yeah.
like, but I don't know why. I always just assumed.
I always pictured a pharaoh, and I kind of still
exactly.
did.
I was thinking pharaoh, so that's why I was thinking, I don't know, whatever. It's
Maybe,
fine. That's not...
The closest I come to him having pale skin in my head is imagining him as Fire Lord Ozai.
Yeah, you know. That also works. Ozorn, Ozai.
Exactly.
You know? It's all comes from Ozzy Osbourne.
All comes from Ozzy fucking Osbourne.
Oh my god, that's fun. Learning that, and also learning that she based Numair's looks off of Jeff Goldblum. He's
that is a revelation.
Yeah. Except not white, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Not at all how I've ever imagined him, but okay.
Yeah. So that was something. That's something I read in her, like, A Spy's Guide to Tortall book, which is fantastic, and it has lots of concept art and stuff of characters, and I love that, except that it makes Dane white. And I'm like, she's not white, though.
She's not. She
literally, like, every single time she describes her dad, he has wood brown skin. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a very dark man.
Yeah.
She's not white. Mm-mm. Especially with her, like, super curly hair. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm like, how could... all of the fan art on DeviantArt, they've just drawn her white, and it's so irritating to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's your fave headcanon for the book?
I don't even know that it's very hard for me with this book because...
I was so absorbed in what was there.
Exactly. It's a lot of being absorbed in what's happening, as well as... I'm just taking things in and interpreting them as they go, and I think that might lead to headcanons that I don't realize I'm doing, and I'm just like, no, that was implied. You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much in this book. I don't really have a headcanon for this one. I just...
Honestly, it was just very... it consumed my brain while I was reading it. I was so hooked.
Very strange moments of being like, I feel like she and Rakosh could be good together. It's like, they're cute. They play off each other nicely. Also, I'm always a big fan of the rivalry to, romance thing. So,
Rivals to lovers. But yeah. So what book are we reading for next month?
Next month, we reach our final Dane book of her series. Not the final book she appears in, because that's bullshit.
She appears in... Yeah.
The Realm of the Gods.
Yeah. So, honestly, warning, it's a bit of a letdown.
After this one, yeah. Absolutely.
I am going to give a warning, a content warning for very large age gap relationship.
Yeah.
That's something that if that's something that squicks you out, know that before you decide to read the book or not. So make that choice, and if you don't read it, we'll see you in 2 months for first test.
Sounds good.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. We're going to be at Cal soon.
I
just got so
excited. I realized
excited.
how close we are to reading Cal, and I'm like, yay!
And then after Cal, we get to read our babies.
Yay! Oh my god.
I'm so excited.
Ugh.
Okay, sorry. I got way too excited.
I love them.
But yeah. So as a reminder, I'm Risa.
I am Ariana. I said it. Can you not hear me?
Yeah. No, you did, but you say the last bit too, Ariana.
Oh, right. Keep on reading.